I wake up every morning at 5:30. Many people I know think this is crazy, especially at my age. 67 is no joke, but over 4 decades of teaching, my body has become accustomed to this rhythm. First, a leisurely breakfast with a cup of strong tea, watching the morning news, and only then, getting ready for work. My mirror reflects a strict image: gray hair, gathered in a neat bundle, a minimum of makeup, a few wrinkles, which I have earned through years of work and care. People are often surprised to learn my age. They say I look younger. Maybe it's the energy my work gives me, or maybe it's that strange feeling of satisfaction you get when you're doing something really important. Lundy Academy is my brainchild, my major life project. 20 years ago, when Edmund, my husband, died, I was left alone with little insurance, no savings, and a huge emptiness inside. Our son Garth was in college by then. I could have continued teaching in a regular school, slowly moving toward retirement as I had previously planned. But after Edmund's death came a sharp realization. Life was too short not to take a chance on my dream, and I dreamed of a school where education would be not just a transfer of knowledge, but a true partnership between teachers and students. A place where children are not afraid to ask questions and teachers do not hide behind authority. I remember my hands shaking when I signed the paperwork for a home equity loan, risking everything I had. Garth used to twiddle his thumb and call me crazy. "Mom, you're 50-something. What new school? What business? Sit tight and get ready to retire." But I didn't listen. At first, it was a tiny space in an unprestigious neighborhood in Scranton, 4 classrooms and a handful of students. I was the principal, the literature teacher, the bookkeeper, and the bookkeeper. I fell asleep at midnight working on papers and woke up before dawn to prepare for classes. A lot of people didn't believe that anything would come out of it, but I knew what I was doing. I had a lot of teaching experience and a clear understanding of what most schools lacked. Now, 20 years later, Lundy Academy is a spacious 3-story building in a nice neighborhood. The children of Scranton's most affluent families attend, and the results of our graduates speak for themselves. 95% go to prestigious universities. My car not new, but a reliable Toyota is pulling smoothly out of the driveway. It's a 10-minute drive to school. I could live in a luxurious house, drive an expensive car, but I prefer modesty. Not out of stinginess. I just don't see the point in ostentatious luxury. What really matters cannot be bought with money. Parking in my usual spot near the school, I noticed that a bus with junior high school students has already pulled up. Children jump out of it, loud and energetic as spring streams. Some wave at me. "Good morning, Ms. Lundy." My heart warms. These are the moments worth waking up for every morning at 5:30. Donna, our administrator, greets me in the lobby. "Ms. Lundy, the Board of Trustees has confirmed next week's meeting, and the results of the education competition came in. Our 8th graders won first place in the region." I nod with a smile. "That's great, Donna. Please prepare a press release, and don't forget to mention Ms. Holt. It's a credit to her." My office is a spacious, bright room with huge windows overlooking the school garden. On the walls, photos of graduates of different years, thank you letters, diplomas. But my favorite place is not at the principal's desk, but in the corner where there is an old teacher's desk, where I prepare for lessons. After all, despite the post of director, I continue to teach 3 classes of literature per week. The first lesson today is The Great Gatsby with 11th graders. A difficult age, a difficult book, but that's what makes it so interesting. Minus Miss Lundy, do you believe that Gatsby really loved Daisy, or was it just an obsession with an idea? Lucas asks, a thoughtful boy with serious eyes. That's a good question, Lucas. What do you think? I think that he didn't love her, but his dream of her, an image he created in his head. That's an interesting thought. Does anyone want to disagree? And the discussion begins. lively, sincere. I watch young minds analyze, argue, formulate thoughts. It's a real magic worth living for. After lessons, I have administrative work, meetings with teachers, reviewing financial reports, planning future projects. School is not only classes and students, it is also a complex mechanism that requires constant attention. I return home usually by 7 p.m., sometimes later. There is silence waiting for me at home. I used to feel loneliness in it. Now I feel calm and peace. The phone rings. It's Eunice, an old friend of mine. "How was your day, Bee?" Her voice is as warm as ever. It was fine. The 11th graders surprised me today with their in-depth analysis of Gatsby. And you? Eunice is the only person I can talk to about anything without pretending. We've been friends for over 30 years, ever since we worked at the same school. She knows all about my successes and failures, my joys and anxieties. Eunice has always been there for me, both when I decided to start a school and when I was downcast with fatigue and doubt. "Did Garth call?" she asks, after discussing the school news. "No," I answer briefly, "but he promised to stop by on Sunday with Octavia." "Oh," Eunice expresses her whole attitude toward my sister-in-law in that short sound. "Garth and Octavia, my son and his wife, a family that really has long since become just a word. They stop by once a month, as if performing an unpleasant but necessary duty. Garth works for an insurance company, completely immersed in the corporate routine. He was different once, inquisitive, enthusiastic. But years in the office and life with Octavia seemed to have emasculated his soul. Octavia is a successful real estate agent, always impeccably dressed, with perfect manicures and a cold smile. She is the epitome of everything I dislike: superficiality, obsession with status, disdain for anything that doesn't bring immediate gain or prestige. It's not that I'm hiding my status as principal and school owner. It's just that Garth and Octavia never asked me where I taught. To them, all schools look the same, and a teacher is a poor man. Funny thing is, they don't even know the name of my school. "Mom teaches school somewhere," is all Garth has to say about my job. I stopped being offended a long time ago. Now I just accept it as fact. I remember Octavia remarking a few years ago, looking at the pictures in my living room, "Beatrice, why don't you get a better job? At your age, sitting with children all day is so tiring." I just smiled then and replied that I loved my job. She shook her head with a look of condescending pity on her face. And then there was that awkward situation at Garth's birthday party when one of his coworkers asked me about my job. I started to talk about the new program we had implemented at the school, and I noticed Octavia literally roll her eyes and then say loudly, "Let's not talk about work, especially something as boring as teaching. Who cares about other people's kids and their grades?" Garth remained silent, as he always does. He never intervenes when Octavia is disrespectful. Sometimes I think he doesn't even notice it. "B, are you still there?" Eunice's voice brings me back to reality. "Yes, I'm sorry, I've been thinking. About the family dinner? Why don't you cancel it?" "No," I sigh. "It's a tradition. Besides, it's only 2 hours once a month." After talking to Eunice, I settle into my favorite chair with a book. I read Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse for the umpteenth time. Each rereading reveals new facets. I wonder if Garth and Octavia realize what a blessing it is to be able to return to their favorite books again and again. I doubt it. The next morning, as I leave the house, I notice the mailman. He waves to me in greeting. "Good morning, Ms. Lundy. It's a good day today." "A good day indeed, Frank," I reply with a smile. "How's your daughter? All ready for college?" "Yes, thank you for asking. She's so excited. And thanks again for the letter of recommendation. It was very helpful. Moments like this are small testimonies that my life matters. that I'm making a difference, even if it's just a little bit. There's a faculty meeting at school today. We're discussing a new initiative, a scholarship program for talented children from low-income families. But it's financially risky, says our CFO, Thomas Becker. We could lose some of our paying customers if the reputation of an elite school suffers. Elite is defined by the quality of education, not by the thickness of parents' wallets. I reply firmly. We'll start with 5 scholarships next year. If the experiment is successful, we'll expand the program. No one objects. Over the years, I've learned to be soft but firm in what I think is right. That's the secret of successful leadership, knowing when to give in and when to stand your ground. After the meeting, Alice Holt, our best math teacher, comes up to me. Ms. Lundy, I would like to personally supervise one of the scholarship students. I have in mind a very bright boy from the West Side neighborhood. Of course, Alice. Get the paperwork ready and we'll consider him first. The day flies by. In the evening, I go to the supermarket to buy groceries for the weekend. In the dairy section, I run into Mrs. Brooks, the mother of one of our students. Minus Ms. Lundy. What a pleasure to meet you. I wanted to thank you in person. Jeremy got an invitation to the Math Olympiad. He's so happy. It's entirely his fault, Mrs. Brooks. Your son is very talented. But without your school, without your approach to education, he wouldn't have flourished. You know, my husband recently said that sending Jeremy to Lundy Academy was the best decision of our lives. I smile, feeling genuine joy. This is it, real recognition, worth more than all the formal awards and titles. The phone rings at home. It's Garth. Mom, just reminding you about Sunday. Octavia and I will stop by at 4 o'clock. Of course, Garth, I'll remember. Okay, how are you? I'm great, thanks. How are you? I'm good. Work, stuff. You know. Awkward pause. It's like we've exhausted all topics of conversation in the first 30 seconds. Okay, Mom, I'll see you Sunday then. See you Sunday, Garth. Short beeps. I wonder if our conversation has ever been different. More alive? More real? I don't remember. It seems that Garth calls only as a matter of duty, as if he's checking off a to-do list. Call my mother. Done. In the evening, I go through photo albums, an old habit when I get a little sad. Here's Garth as a little boy, smiling with his mouth full, showing the absence of his 2 front teeth. Here's Edmund and I on a picnic, young and happy. Here's the first graduating class of Lundy Academy, only 8 students, but how proud we were of them. Life is a strange thing. You never know where it's going to turn. If someone had told me 20 years ago that I would own a successful private school, but be estranged from my own son, I wouldn't have believed it. But that's just the way it is. I put the sketchbook on the shelf and turn off the light. Tomorrow is a new day, new lessons, new challenges, and, most importantly, new opportunities to make the world a little better. After all, isn't that what life is all about? Sunday morning greets me with silence and sunlight streaming in through the loose curtains. I take my time getting up, allowing myself the rare luxury of lounging in bed. Today, I don't have to rush to school or check papers or teach classes. Today, I have a different job, a family visit. Garth and Octavia will be here at 4. My sister-in-law likes precision and punctuality. They'll ring the doorbell at 4:00, not a minute earlier, not a minute later. In the meantime, I have time to prepare, not for cooking. Octavia barely touches food anyway, for fear of her figure, and not for cleaning. My house is always clean, though not as sterile as Octavia prefers. No, I prepare myself mentally. I go down to the kitchen and brew a strong tea, a small morning ritual that no day begins without. My thoughts involuntarily return to the past. Garth was such a lively child, boisterous, inquisitive, with perpetually knocked knees and fantastic ideas. I remember when he was 8, he decided he was going to be an astronaut and spent a week sleeping in a homemade spacesuit made of cardboard boxes. At 14, he became interested in photography and traveled all over Scranton looking for interesting shots. At 16, he started writing a fantasy novel about parallel worlds. What happened to that boy? When did he turn into that aloof man with the tired eyes and the duty smile? Sometimes I think Garth wears a mask, not just in front of me, but in front of himself, as if somewhere along the way he lost something important, and now he's desperately pretending that everything is going according to plan. Maybe things changed when he went to business school. Edmund, my late husband, insisted on it. He wanted his son to get a real practical profession, rather than living his life on creative experiments. Garth resisted at first, but gradually gave in. Or maybe it was Octavia. They met in the 3rd year, and soon lively, direct Garth began to turn into this strict young man with a briefcase and impeccably ironed shirts. My phone rings, interrupting the flood of memories. It's Eunice. Are you preparing for the Highness's visit? I can hear the barely concealed irritation in her voice. How did you know? I smile, holding the receiver with my shoulder and pulling out some lunch items from the refrigerator. B, I seriously don't understand why you put up with this woman and why you let her not know who you really are. I sigh, not knowing how to explain what I don't fully understand. It's complicated, Eunice. Garth is my only son, and Octavia is his choice. But that doesn't mean you should let her look down on you. If she knew you owned one of the finest private schools in the city, that's not the point, I interrupted. It's not about the school or the money. It's about respect. It's about humanity. She doesn't disrespect me because she thinks I'm poor. She disrespects the very essence of what I do. To her, a teacher is a loser, someone who hasn't been able to achieve real success. Even more so, show her she's wrong. And what will that change? She'll just start respecting money and status, not the man and his work. I don't want that kind of respect, Eunice. My friend is sighing on the other end of the line. You've always been stubborn, Bee. But listen, if she starts making condescending comments about your work again, promise me you won't keep quiet. We'll see, I replied evasively. I have to get ready, Eunice. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I hang up the phone and go back to my preparations. I choose a simple but good menu: baked chicken, vegetable stew, apple pie. Nothing fancy, nothing fancy. I know Octavia will compare my cooking to the expensive restaurants she and Garth frequent. At 3 hours and 45 minutes, I'm all set. The house is cleaned, dinner is ready, the table is set, and I've changed into a simple but elegant dress in a muted blue color. Not too dressy, so that I wouldn't look like I was making a big deal of their visit, but not so casual that Octavia could accuse me of being sloppy. The doorbell rings at 4 sharp. I take a deep breath and go to open it. Mom? Garth hugs me discreetly, as if performing an obligatory ritual. He smells like expensive cologne and a little like cigarettes, even though he claims he quit 3 years ago. Beatrice, Octavia gives me a kiss without touching me. She's wearing a perfectly fitting cream dress that must have cost more than my entire closet. What a lovely brooch, she comments, looking at the simple silver brooch on my dress. So, vintage. I know that in Octavia's mouth, vintage means old-fashioned and cheap, but I smile and thank her for the compliment. Before they even take off their outer garments, I notice my sister-in-law's eyes glancing around the living room, checking to see if there's anything new to criticize. Come in, I invite. Dinner's almost ready. Oh, we've just come from the Côte d'Azur, Octavia replies quickly. Had a salad there. But, of course, I would love to try your home-cooked meal. Garth shuffles awkwardly from foot to foot. I know he's hungry. He's always had a good appetite, and lettuce leaves can hardly fill him up. But he remains silent, not wanting to contradict his wife. Of course, I said. Then perhaps some tea? I've just baked an apple pie. Tea will do, Octavia agreed, coming into the living room and sitting down carefully on the edge of the sofa, as if afraid of staining her spotless dress. Garth, dear, tell your mother about your promotion. My son smiles weakly, clearly not sharing his wife's enthusiasm. Yes, I've been promoted to deputy head of the corporate insurance department. Congratulations, I say sincerely. You deserve it. This is just the first step, Octavia intervenes. Next year he'll be department head, and in 3 years he'll be on the board of directors. Isn't that right, darling? Garth nods with a fake smile. In his eyes, I see the humility of a man who stopped arguing a long time ago. With Garth's promotion, we have a whole different social circle now, Octavia continues, taking the cup of tea from my hands. Last week, we were invited to a private reception with the Fentons. You wouldn't know it, of course, but they're one of the most powerful families in the city. They own a third of the real estate in the Central District. Very interesting, I reply politely, though I know exactly who the Fentons are. James Fenton is a member of my school's board of trustees, and his son is in our 10th grade class. But Octavia, of course, is not privy to these details. Beatrice, Octavia looks around the living room with ill-concealed disdain. I've been meaning to say for a long time, these curtains are terribly out of date, and these bookshelves, they take up so much space and collect dust. Modern minimalism is much more practical. If you want, I can recommend a great interior designer. He's expensive, of course, but I can negotiate a discount for you. Thank you, Octavia, but I like my house as it is, I replied calmly. These books are my old friends, and I'm not ready to part with them. Octavia rolls her eyes, as if I've said something incredibly naive. Everyone reads from tablets now, Beatrice. Paper books are a thing of the past. Like these. She points to a stack of student notebooks on my desk, handwritten works. Hasn't your school switched to e-learning yet? We use both, I reply. Some things are better done the old-fashioned way. Typical of public schools, sighs Octavia. Always one step behind. If I worked in education, which of course is impossible to imagine, I'd insist on a complete modernization. Garth clears his throat, clearly sensing the tension. Mom, how are your students? Are they still making noise in class? It's his standard question, general, impersonal, not requiring a detailed answer. Garth doesn't remember the names of my colleagues, doesn't know what subjects I teach, isn't interested in school projects. To him, my work is something amorphous and insignificant, just a way to occupy his time. I'm fine, Garth, thank you, I reply in the same formal way. How are your co-workers? They're fine. A lot of work before the end of the quarter. The conversation dies down again. Octavia, unable to bear the pause, starts talking about the new house she sold last week. 3 million, Beatrice. Can you imagine? And my commission was 6%. I made more in one transaction than a school teacher makes in a year. She laughs, clearly pleased with herself. But that's just the beginning. I have a $5 million property in mind, and I'm pretty sure I'll close it this month. She talks about money with such enthusiasm, as if it were the only thing that matters in life. For Octavia, it is. The bigger the number, the more respect a person deserves. Congratulations, I say. That sounds impressive. It is. Octavia leans back on the sofa, forgetting her earlier caution. You know, Beatrice, sometimes I wonder why you didn't try your hand at something more lucrative. After Edmund died, you had an insurance policy. You could have invested that money in a business, in real estate, instead of continuing to teach for pennies. I can see Garth cringe at his wife's bluntness, but he remains silent as usual. Everyone has their own priorities, Octavia, I say softly. It's more important to me to see my children learn and grow than to see my bank account grow. That's because you've never seen a really big bank account, she retorts with a smug smile. Trust me, it changes the perspective. I barely restrain myself from telling her about my school's financial situation, the annual turnover, the value of the property, but instead I just smile and offer more tea. No, thank you. Octavia looks at her watch. We should get going. We have dinner with the Rogerses at 7, and I still have to change. Garth looks a little guilty. I'm sorry, Mom. We really can't stay late, but dinner was great. You've barely touched your food, Garth, I remark. I'll be sure to catch up next time, he promises with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. I walk them to the door. Octavia gives me another air kiss, and Garth gives me an awkward hug. And then they're already getting into their shiny black SUV and driving away until their next mandatory visit in a month. Closing the door, I lean my back against it and sigh deeply. It's always the same, the formal questions, the condescending comments, the hidden recriminations, and always the feeling that I'm an unfortunate reminder of a past they'd rather not advertise. I walk back into the kitchen and see my lunch almost untouched. Garth has always loved my cooking, but today he barely touched his food. Apparently, he was afraid of violating Octavia's dietary guidelines. She controls every aspect of his life, from his clothes to his food, as if he were a mannequin, not a grown man, to be properly dressed and displayed. I think back to what Garth was like before he met Octavia. He was in college, a part-time photographer, dreaming of traveling and a creative career. And then there she was, an ambitious economics student with impeccable manners and iron grip. Octavia immediately recognized Garth's potential, not creative, but social. The son of a successful businessman, as was Edmund, with a good education and presentable appearance. Ideal material for creating an exemplary husband with career prospects. A phone call interrupts my musings. It's Eunice again. Well, how did it go? She asks without preamble. The usual, I sigh. Octavia bragged about her commission and offered to modernize my interior. And Garth? What about Garth? He sat there like a schoolboy who'd been called to the principal's office. Didn't even stand up for me when Octavia called teaching a job for a penny. B. Eunice's voice became serious. Tell me honestly, why do you put up with these visits? They only bring you frustration. I ponder her question. Really, why? What makes me go through this ritual of humiliation again and again? Probably hope, I finally answer. The hope that one day I'll see a glimmer of the boy I raised in Garth's eyes, that he'll remember how we read together before bed, how we hiked, how we dreamed of the future. And if that doesn't happen, then, I don't know, Eunice, maybe it will be time to stop waiting. After talking to my friend, I sit down at the table with a cup of fresh tea. In front of me is a stack of essays that need to be checked by tomorrow. Work is what always brings me back to reality, to what really matters. As I read my students' musings on Hamlet, I gradually calm down. Yes, my son has turned into a stranger. Yes, his wife looks down on me. But here in these notebooks is real life, real thoughts, real future. And I'm part of that future, helping to create it, to shape it, to guide it. It's starting to get dark outside the window. I turn on the desk lamp and continue reading 17-year-old Emma's essay on the problem of choice in Shakespeare's tragedy. At this moment, I feel much richer than Octavia with her multi-million-dollar deals. Because real wealth is the opportunity to touch a developing mind, to see how talent blossoms, how personality is formed, and no amount of condescending looks can take that treasure away from me. 68 years old, a number that makes me smile when looking in the mirror this morning. It's not that I'm afraid of getting older. After a certain age, you start to see each year as a gift. It's just strange to realize that I've been on this earth for almost 7 decades. My birthday is usually quiet. Congratulations from colleagues, a small tea party in the teacher's lounge, cards from former students. This year, Eunice insisted I throw a real party. It's time to stop hiding in the shadows, Bee, she said a few weeks ago when we were discussing the upcoming date. I'd held back saying I didn't like the fuss, but she'd been adamant. And then the unexpected happened. Garth called to say that he and Octavia wanted to throw me a celebratory dinner at my own house. Mom, you've always been too modest, he said with an unaccustomed insistence in his voice. It's time to change that. I didn't argue. To be honest, the suggestion caught me off guard. Garth had never been much for celebrating my birthday, usually limiting himself to a formal call and a gift card to some store. What was different this time? Eunice immediately suspected something wrong. It's probably Octavia's idea, she said when I shared the news, and I bet it wasn't about pleasing you. My friend turned out to be right. 2 days ago, Garth had let it slip that Octavia had invited some of her clients and coworkers over for dinner. She thinks it's a great networking opportunity, he explained with a guilty smile. So, my birthday party turned into a business evening for my sister-in-law. I didn't mind. After all, I'm not used to being the backdrop for other people's success. My house has been a bustle since this morning. Octavia has hired a catering service that has taken full charge of organizing the dinner. Waiters, cooks, decorators have arrived. My cozy living room in front of my eyes turns into the semblance of a restaurant hall. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, exquisite arrangements of flowers. Octavia arrived at 11, holding a huge folder with the plan for the evening. She barely said hello to me, immediately beginning to give instructions to the catering staff. She was wearing an austere navy blue dress, more appropriate for a business meeting than a family party. Beatrice, she finally turned her attention to me. Have you decided what you're going to wear? I was thinking about my beige suit, I answered. Octavia gave me a critical look. No, that won't do. It's too teacherly. I brought you a dress. She handed me a bag from an expensive boutique. Wear it, please, and don't forget to get your hair done. I made you an appointment with a stylist for 3 hours. I wanted to object, to say I preferred to dress myself, but she'd already turned away, back to her conversation with the catering manager. Garth showed up around 2, laden with bags of alcohol. He looked stressed and tired. Happy birthday, Mom. He hugged me awkwardly, trying not to wrinkle his expensive suit. Thank you, son, but don't you think it's a little too much? I circled the living room. Octavia wanted everything to be perfect. Garth shrugged. You know how she is. I could hear the notes of weariness and humility in his voice. Garth had long ago stopped resisting his wife's wishes, preferring to go with the flow. At 3 o'clock, as scheduled, the stylist arrived, a young man with bright red hair and a lot of bracelets on his wrists. He spent almost 2 hours with me, working magic on my hair and face. The results surprised me. The mirror reflected an elegant old lady who looked about 10 years younger than her age. But this was not me, at least not the Beatrice Lundy I was used to seeing. The dress Octavia had chosen was surprisingly restrained and even stylish, dark green, with long sleeves and a modest neckline. It really suited me, though it was not my usual style. By 6 o'clock, everything was ready. The guests were to arrive at 7:30. Octavia made one last check of the service, the arrangement of the furniture, the work of the waiters. Don't forget to smile, Beatrice, she admonished me. And please don't tell your school stories. No one is interested in them. I didn't say anything, though I was seething with indignation. It's my house, my birthday, but somehow I feel like an intruder at someone else's party. The first to arrive were Carol and Michael Higgins, Octavia's colleagues from the real estate agency. They were followed by the Parkers, owners of a construction company. Then the rest of the party began to arrive, about 20 people in all, most of whom I had never seen before in my life. Octavia introduced me to each guest in the same way. This is Beatrice, Garth's mom. No mention of my profession, my school, my accomplishments, just Garth's mom, as if that was the only meaningful role in my life. Eunice, invited at the last minute at my insistence, arrived a little later than the others. When she saw me, she froze for a moment, then laughed. "Bee, I hardly recognized you. You look different." "It's the work of a professional stylist," I explained, happy to see a familiar face among the crowd of strangers. "And how do you feel?" "Like an exhibit in a museum," I answered honestly. "Everyone's looking, but no one can see." Eunice squeezed my hand. "Hold on, I'm with you." Dinner started at 7:30. The food was exquisite, the wines expensive, the conversation superficial and businesslike. I sat at the head of the table, formally occupying the place of honor, but actually staying out of the conversation. Most of the guests were discussing the real estate market, new development projects, investment opportunities. No one asked about my life, my interests, my work. After the main courses, Garth stood up and made a short toast. "To my mother, Beatrice, happy birthday." Everyone raised their glasses, some even applauded. Octavia smiled her rehearsed smile at me and added, "To Beatrice, who gave the world my wonderful husband." Once again, I was defined only through my connection to them, not as a person, but as an appendage to their lives. After the toasts, the conversation at the table became more animated. The alcohol did its job. The guests started joking, laughing, sharing stories. Then one of them, a middle-aged man named Robert Dunning, suddenly turned to me. "What do you do, Beatrice? Garth once mentioned that you were working." Before I could answer, Octavia intervened. "Oh, Beatrice teaches school. She has for years." She said it as if she were reporting a terminal, but not fatal illness, with sympathy and a touch of squeamishness. "Really?" Robert was interested. "My aunt was a teacher too, a noble profession." "I'm not sure about noble." Octavia laughed, sipping her wine. "But Beatrice really devoted her life to it, even when there were other opportunities." "What opportunities?" I asked, entering the conversation for the first time that evening. "Well, you could have done something more. Promising after Edmund died." Octavia shrugged. "With your education and insurance, but you chose teaching." "I didn't choose teaching," I said calmly. "I've always been a teacher. I always will be." "But you have to admit, it's not the most lucrative path," Carol Higgins interjected. "Dis, my cousin works in a public school, and her salary is ridiculous." "It's not just about the money," I replied. "There are more important things." "Like what?" Octavia asked with a slight chuckle. "Like seeing children grow and develop, how they learn to think, to analyze, to understand the world." "But that's so limited." Octavia shook her head. "Being locked in a classroom day after day, year after year, working with kids who don't care, for a paycheck that barely makes ends meet." I felt anger building inside, but I tried to stay calm. "Not all kids don't care, and not all teachers can barely make a living." "Oh, come on." Octavia rolled her eyes theatrically. "Everyone knows that teachers are beggars with diplomas, people who didn't have the ambition or the talent to succeed." There was silence in the room. I looked at Garth, expecting him to react in some way to my wife's words, but he smiled awkwardly, avoiding my gaze. "That's a very interesting opinion, Octavia," I said at last, keeping an icy calm. "But I think success can be defined in many ways." Of course," she nodded indulgently. "I'm just saying that there are more worthy ways to realize yourself, especially for someone with your abilities." And what are those? Business, investments, real estate. She circled her hand around the guests sitting at the table. Look at all of us. We are building the future, creating value, developing the economy. And teaching? Well, it's more of a hobby than a real career. I felt Eunice tense up next to me. She opened her mouth to reply, but I stopped her with a slight gesture. Well, everyone has their own path, I said with a smile. By the way, the dessert looks delicious. Shall we try it? I deliberately changed the subject, not wanting to turn my birthday into a battlefield. But something inside of me had finally snapped. In the past, I could put Octavia's condescension down to her ignorance, her lack of understanding. But today she had expressed her true attitude, not only toward me, but toward the cause to which I had devoted my life. And she did it publicly, in my own house, on my birthday. Garth never stood up for me, didn't say a word in defense of me or my profession. It was as if he completely agreed with his wife, or simply didn't see fit to contradict her. The rest of the evening was a blur to me. I smiled, made small talk, thanked him for the gifts. But inside, I made a decision. I wasn't going to take this attitude anymore. I'm not going to pretend everything's okay. I would not keep silent for the sake of preserving the appearance of family relations. The guests started to leave around 11. Eunice was the last one to leave, helping me pack the presents. Are you all right? She asked me when we were alone. No, I answered honestly. But I will be, tomorrow. She was out of line, B. And Garth, I never realized he was such a weakling. Neither did I sighed. But that's not my problem. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to live my life differently. Eunice looked at me carefully. What are you planning? I'm not sure yet, but stop hiding. No more letting them define who I am and what I'm worth. After Eunice left, I sat in the living room for a long time, looking at the traces of the party. Empty glasses, crumpled napkins, wilting flowers in vases. It all seemed a metaphor for my relationship with my son and daughter-in-law. Beautiful on the outside, but empty and lifeless on the inside. I didn't fall asleep until near morning, but I woke up with a surprising clarity in my head. For the first time in a long time, I felt free from the need to conform to other people's expectations, from the burden of insincere relationships. It was business as usual at school, classes, meetings, administrative stuff. None of my coworkers knew about yesterday's incident, and I was glad of that. Here at Lundy Academy, I was valued for my intelligence, my experience, my dedication. Here I was not Garth's mom, but Ms. Lundy, a respected educator and leader. When I returned home, I found a message on my answering machine. It was Octavia calling. Beatrice, I need your help. Remember Robert Dunning who was at the dinner last night? He's looking for a good school for the child of his business partner who is moving to Scranton. I realize you work in a regular school, but maybe you've heard of a private school called Lundy Academy? Everyone says it's the best school in town. I need to impress Robert, so any information will come in handy. Call me back. I smiled as I listened to the message. The irony of the situation was almost comical. Octavia, who despised my pauper profession, was now asking for advice about a school I owned. A school named after my last name. Before I could contemplate how to respond to this message, the phone rang again. This time it was Robert Dunning himself. Minus Miss Lundy? It's Robert. We met yesterday at your birthday party. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Not at all, Mr. Dunning. What can I do for you? You see, I've already spoken to your sister-in-law about a school for my partner's child. She recommended Lundy Academy, so I thought I'd do some checking. Turns out the school has an excellent reputation. Octavia promised to arrange for me to go there through her connections. I could barely contain my laughter. Octavia had promised to use her connections to arrange a visit to my own school. Actually, Mr. Dunning, I said, You don't need Octavia's connections. I can arrange a tour of Lundy Academy for you myself, anytime that's convenient for you. Really? He was surprised. That would be wonderful, but, pardon me for asking, but how can you arrange it? Do you know the school administration? I thought for a moment. Should I tell him the truth now or let things take their course? Let's just say I have some influence at Lundy Academy, I answered diplomatically. I suggest we meet there tomorrow at 10 in the morning. I'll make the arrangements. Excellent. Robert was delighted. Perhaps we should invite Octavia. She's very interested in this case. Of course, I agreed with a smile. The more the merrier. After hanging up the phone, I called Eunice and told her about the conversation. Oh my God, she laughed. This is going to be the show of the century. Octavia will come to school not knowing that you own her. Not just the owner, but the principal and the literature teacher, I reminded her. I wonder what expression will be on her face when she realizes that. I hope you will allow me to be present at this historic moment, Eunice said. I will, I promised. After all, you always said it was time for me to stop hiding. After talking to Eunice, I made another call to Donna, the school administrator, alerting her to tomorrow's visitors and asking her to prepare all the necessary materials about the school. Then I sat down to write an email to Octavia. Dear Octavia, Robert Dunning contacted me about Lundy Academy. I have organized a tour of the school for him tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. He would like you to attend as well. I hope this is a convenient time for you. Best wishes, Beatrice. The reply came almost instantly. Beatrice, thank you for the information, but I don't see how you could organize a tour. In any case, I will be there. Robert is a very important client. Octavia. I didn't bother to answer her question. Tomorrow she would find out for herself, and it would be, as Eunice said, the show of the century. I felt a strange excitement as I prepared for tomorrow. Not gloating, no, more the satisfaction of knowing that I would finally be able to show my true face, to stop pretending to be something I wasn't. As I fell asleep, I thought about how our relationship would change after tomorrow. Would Octavia have more respect for me now that she knew my status? Or would she find new ways to belittle me? And how will Garth behave? Will he be ashamed that he never took an interest in my work enough to find out the truth? Either way, tomorrow begins a new chapter in our relationship, and this time I'll be writing it on my own terms. I arrive at Lundy Academy half an hour ahead of schedule. I want to make sure everything is ready for the visit. Of course, I could have left it to Donna or one of the deputies, but today is too important to put the responsibility on someone else's shoulders. Besides, I need some time to gather my thoughts. The guard at the entrance nods in greeting. Good morning, Miss Lundy. Good morning, Fred. How's your son doing? Everything all right with his admission? Yes, ma'am. He got into Polytechnic. With your recommendation, everything went smoothly. These little conversations are part of my daily life at school. Not only do I know all the teachers and students by name, but I know most of the staff, the security guards, the parents. For me, the school is not just a business, but a real community where every person matters. I'm greeted in the main lobby by Donna, the indispensable administrator who has worked with me since the school's inception. Everything's ready, Ms. Lundy, she informs me, handing me a folder of paperwork. I've prepared informational booklets, recent test scores, and a list of our graduates who have been accepted to prestigious universities. Thank you, Donna. What would I do without you? You would have, she said, smiling, but with less efficiency. I walk up to my office, a large room with huge windows overlooking the schoolyard. Behind the glass, I can see the elementary school students lined up for morning exercise. Their ringing voices and laughter can be heard even through the closed windows. At exactly 9:45, the internal telephone rings. Miss Lundy, Mr. Dunning is here to see you. Donna says. Let him come up, I answered, and went out to the reception area to meet him personally. Robert Dunning looks more focused and businesslike than he did at last night's dinner. Next to him is a young man of Oriental appearance, minus Ms. Lundy. Robert shakes my hand. Thank you for agreeing to meet me. Allow me to introduce Kim Sung-woo, my business partner whose child I told you about. Nice to meet you, Mr. Song-woo. I smile as I shake the hand of the second visitor. Welcome to Lundy Academy. Thank you, he replies with a slight accent. Robert has told me a lot about your school. I notice the slight confusion on Robert's face. He clearly doesn't understand why I'm being allowed right into the principal's office and why I'm being treated with such respect. Do you work here, Ms. Lundy? He asks cautiously. Yes, Mr. Dunning. I am the principal and owner of this school, I answer calmly. The amazement on his face is priceless. He opens his mouth, closes it, opens it again, like a fish thrown ashore. But Octavia said you were a teacher. I am a teacher, I nod. I teach high school literature, but I also founded this school 20 years ago and have been running it ever since. Robert and Kim exchange glances. The former still has a look of amazement on his face, the latter a look of polite curiosity. Is the academy named after you? Kim asks. More like in honor of my family, I answer. Lundy is my last name. Robert finally comes to his senses. I'm sorry, Ms. Lundy. I really didn't know. Your sister-in-law. She didn't mention it. I'm sure she didn't mention it. I smile demurely. Octavia should be arriving any minute. How about we start the tour in the meantime? I show my guests the school. Modern classrooms equipped with the latest technology, a spacious library with thousands of volumes, laboratories, a sports complex, and an assembly hall. I tell them about our educational program, the achievements of our students, and the qualifications of our teaching staff. Kim is especially interested in the program for foreign students. My son speaks English well, but it is still not his native language. Do you have special support for these children? Of course, I answer. We have a team of ESL teachers who teach English as a second language. In addition, we practice a mentoring system. When a new student is assigned a buddy from among his peers who helps him adapt. As I walk down the hallways, I greet teachers and students, call many of them by name, and inquire about what they are doing. Everyone responds with obvious respect and warmth. I don't need to demonstrate my authority. It's obvious without further ado. We are just looking around the chemistry room when a familiar voice comes from the corridor. Sorry, I'm late. These morning traffic jams. Octavia swiftly enters the classroom, impeccably dressed and coiffed, with a businesslike smile on her face. When she sees me, she freezes for a moment as if she has hit an invisible wall. Her face stretches, her eyes widen, and her smile turns into a grimace of amazement. Beatrice? Her voice sounds unnaturally high. What are you doing here? Hello, Octavia. I answer calmly. I'm just showing Mr. Dunning and Mr. Song-woo our school. Our school? She looks from me to the guests and back again. I don't understand. Minus Miss Lundy is the principal and owner of Lundy Academy. Robert explains, clearly enjoying Octavia's confusion. Imagine, I didn't know that either until today. There must be some mistake, Octavia laughs nervously. Beatrice works as a teacher in a regular school. I teach literature here at the Lundy Academy, I explain patiently, which I founded 20 years ago and which I still own. Octavia looks like she's been punched in the head. Her flawless makeup can't hide the pallor on her face. She opens her mouth to say something, but can't find the words. That's when Alice Holt, our math teacher, enters the classroom. Sorry to intrude, Miss Lundy, she says, but I have great news. Our team just won first place in the state math Olympiad. That's great, Alice. I am truly overjoyed. Please give all the participants my congratulations and prepare a list for the prizes. As usual, $1,000 each. Alice smiles and walks out, and Octavia looks at me as if she's seeing me for the first time in her life. I can almost hear the gears turning in her head, recalculating and reevaluating everything she knew or thought she knew about me. Shall we continue the tour? I suggest, as if nothing had happened. We still need to see the music room and the art studio. Robert and Kim eagerly follow me. Octavia joins us after a second, still in a state of shock. On the way to the music class, we meet a group of parents who have come for a planning meeting. When they see me, they perk up, minus Miss Lundy. An elegant middle-aged woman addresses me. I wanted to personally thank you for your letter of recommendation for Michael. He's been accepted to Princeton. I'm very pleased, Mrs. Bennett, I reply. Michael has earned it through his hard work. But without your school, without your personal involvement, he would never have made it this far, she insists. Other parents join the conversation, each wanting to share their child's success story, each thanking me for creating such an exceptional school. I can see Octavia shrinking more and more by the minute, as if trying to become invisible. We end the tour in my office, where Donna has already prepared tea and light snacks. Kim Sung-woo looks very impressed. I must admit, Ms. Lundy, your school exceeds my expectations. I think my son will be happy to study here. We'll be happy to have him, I replied. Donna has prepared all the necessary documents for your enrollment. Octavia, who had been sitting in the corner as if struck by thunder, finally joins the conversation. Beatrice, why didn't you ever tell us? All these years, we thought, you never asked, I answer simply. To you and Garth, I was just a teacher. You weren't interested in the details. She blushes, realizing it's true. Neither she nor Garth ever asked questions about my work, my school, my accomplishments. To them, I was an old woman with an unprestigious profession that wasn't even worth mentioning in decent society. But you could say, she begins. Why? I ask. So that you would suddenly start treating me with respect, not as a human being, but as the owner of a successful business. So you'd stop saying that teachers are beggars with diplomas. Robert and Kim exchange awkward glances, clearly feeling out of place. I realize I've gone too far, and I pull myself together. Excuse me, gentlemen. This is a family matter that should not concern you. No, no, Ms. Lundy, Robert says quickly. It is we who should apologize for the intrusion. Perhaps we should revisit the matter of admission another day. That won't be necessary, I assure him. Donna has everything prepared, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. We spend the next half hour discussing the details of admission, the curriculum, the schedule. Octavia sits quietly, only occasionally inserting a brief comment, trying to show that she's in on the subject too. When Robert and Kim leave, Octavia and I are alone in the office. There is an awkward silence. I'm not going to break it. Let her make the first move. Beatrice, she finally says, I don't know what to say. This is so unexpected. Is it? I ask. Has it never occurred to you to ask where exactly I work? School name, job title, anything? Garth told me you were a teacher. She got defensive. And that was enough to draw conclusions about my whole life? Octavia lowers her eyes. I never meant to offend you. You didn't? I raise an eyebrow. What about yesterday's statement that teachers are beggars with diplomas? Or the constant implication that I'm stuck in poverty? She blushes even more. I was wrong. Now I see. What exactly do you see, Octavia? That I'm richer than you thought? That I have status and influence, and now that changes the way you treat me? Octavia can't find anything to say. I can see a new image of me forming in her mind, no longer as a poor teacher, but as a successful businesswoman to be reckoned with. And that makes me even more bitter. Beatrice, I want to fix this, she finally says. We could start over. Now that I know about your school, we could even collaborate. I have a lot of clients with kids looking for good schools. I could refer them to you. Maybe we could work out some kind of, family discounts. There it is. Even now, after everything that's happened, she's only thinking about profits, about how to use this new situation to her advantage. I don't give discounts, Octavia, I answer coldly. Not family discounts, not friendships. Lundy Academy values every student equally. But we are family, she insists. Doesn't that matter? It does, I agree, but not in the context of business, and certainly not after you said yesterday in front of everyone that my profession is the domain of losers. Our conversation is interrupted by an internal phone call. I'm expected at a meeting. I say goodbye to Octavia, feeling strangely relieved. In the evening, already at home, I get a call from Garth. I hesitate, but I answer. Mom? His voice sounds strangely agitated. Octavia told me everything. I don't know what to say. What is there to say? I answer calmly. Now you know where I work. But why didn't you ever tell me you owned the school? That it's named after you? Did you ever ask? I parry. Not once in all these years have you ever asked where exactly I teach? The silence on the other end of the line speaks for itself. I should have been more interested in your life, he finally says. I'm sorry. Why don't you show us around your school? Tell us how it all started? He sounds interested, but there's something in his tone that makes me wary. Perhaps this is too sudden a change after so many years of indifference? Why, Garth? I'm asking you straight out. Why the sudden interest in my work? Because now you know I'm successful and wealthy? No, of course not, he protests, but he doesn't sound convinced. It's just that I realized how little I know about your life. And you're also probably thinking about your inheritance, I say, deciding to test him. About how Lundy Academy isn't just a school, but a very lucrative business. His silence lasts a little longer than it should, and I get my answer. A week passes after that memorable day at school. A week filled with calls from Garth and Octavia that I mostly ignore. Messages pile up on my answering machine. First guilty and apologetic, then insistent, and then annoyed. Mom, we need to talk. Beatrice, let's meet and talk about this. Why are you avoiding us? It's not fair to just disappear after such an opening. I haven't disappeared. I'm just busy with my life. School, students, projects that have always been of paramount importance to me, but that my loved ones never asked about. Friday evening, Eunice stops by my place with a nice bottle of wine and Chinese takeout. How are you? She asks, settling into the chair across from me. Made it through the week? Imagine, I enjoyed it, I reply, pouring the wine into glasses. I think it's the first time in a long time that I felt freedom. Freedom from what? From having to adjust. From those once-a-month dinners where we all pretend to be a close-knit family. From Octavia's condescending comments and Garth's acquiescence. Eunice looks at me carefully. What are you going to do next? They're not going to let up, you know. I do, I sigh, especially now that they know about the school, about my situation. Garth's already starting to pry about the inheritance. Really? Eunice raises her eyebrows. Just like that? Just like that? Not exactly, but he hinted quite transparently, something along the lines of, I never thought about the future of the academy when well, you can't run it. And what did you say? That I have a succession plan and that he has nothing to worry about. I take a sip of wine. Which is true, actually. Only that plan doesn't include him or Octavia. Eunice smiles. You have something on your mind, I can tell. Tell me. I called Morton. I say, referring to my lawyer. I asked him to prepare a new will. I decided that the Lundy Academy would be the basis of an educational foundation for talented children from low-income families. Neither Garth nor Octavia will have anything to do with it. What about them? You're not leaving them anything at all. I'll leave Garth this house and a certain amount of money, enough to give him a comfortable life, but not so much that he can quit working. But the Lundy Academy will be completely taken over by the Foundation's Board of Trustees. Eunice nods. A sensible decision, but you realize they'll be furious when they find out? If they find out, I correct. I'm not going to discuss my will with them. It's my own business. And they're probably already planning how they're going to run the school when they get it. I sigh. Probably. Judging by the fact that Octavia has already offered family discounts to her clients, they see the school primarily as a source of income, not as an educational institution with a mission and values. When will you meet with them? Eunice asks, setting herself some fried rice. I don't know. Part of me wants to put off this conversation for as long as possible, but I realize I'll have to explain myself sooner or later. But not right now. Eunice smiles. Let them suffer a little with the unknown. You know, I say, leaning back in my chair, I suddenly realized that I have no obligations to them, not morally, not at all. I was a good mother to Garth, supported him, educated him, loved him unconditionally. But he grew up, made his choice, and Octavia was part of that choice. Now my duty to him is done. My duty to myself is not. What do you mean? I've lived by other people's rules for too long, Eunice, pretending to be okay with their disregard, their condescension. I've put up with snide remarks to keep the peace in the family. But you know what I realized, that this family only exists in my imagination. To Garth and Octavia, I have long since become something of an inconvenient appendage to their lives, an obligation to be fulfilled, but not a person to be loved and respected. Eunice listens silently, giving me a chance to speak. I won't play this game anymore, I continue. I won't pretend that everything is fine. I won't tolerate their visits out of a sense of duty. If they want a real relationship, they need to learn to respect me for who I am. Not a rich principal, just Beatrice, a woman who loves literature, her students, and quiet evenings with a book. And what are you going to do? Eunice asks. Live my life, I answer simply. Do things I enjoy. Meet people who value me over my status or bank account. And if Garth and Octavia want to be a part of that life, they'll have to accept my terms. The next morning, looking through the mail, I find an invitation to a benefit dinner for the town's Board of Trustees in support of educational programs. I usually avoid such events. I don't like social gatherings or ostentatious charity. But this time I decided to go. Perhaps it's time to step out of the shadows and take the place in the community that I've earned through my labor. Monday, Garth calls again. This time I decide to answer it. Mom? He sounds genuinely surprised, as if he didn't expect me to pick up. Finally, Octavia and I have been trying to reach you for a week. I've been busy, Garth, I answer calmly. I have a lot of work to do at school. Mom, we need to talk. About school, about what happened, everything. Could we come over tonight? Tonight's no good, I say. I have a meeting with the Board of Trustees. Tomorrow then? Or Wednesday? When would that be convenient for you? I hesitate. Part of me wants to put this conversation off, but another part of me realizes it's better to deal with it once and for all. Thursday, I finally say. 7 p.m. and Garth. I'm not ready for a long conversation. I'll only have an hour. Okay, Mom, he agrees hastily. An hour is an hour. We'll be there. After the call, I sit looking out the window for a long time. I know they will come apologizing, assuring me that things will be different now. But I also know that real change takes time and a sincere desire to change. I'm not sure Garth and Octavia are capable of that. On Tuesday, I meet with Morton and sign a new will. The process takes several hours. All the details need to be finalized, making sure my will is executed exactly. Morton explains the intricacies of setting up an educational foundation, its governance, tax aspects. I listen carefully, ask questions, make adjustments. Are you sure you want your son out of the foundation's management? Morton asks at one point. Usually family foundations are managed by, well, family. I'm absolutely sure, I answer firmly. Garth has never been interested in education. He has no experience, no knowledge, not even a sincere desire to develop Lundy Academy. It would just be a source of income for him. I see, Morton nods. In that case, we'll include in the Foundation's board of directors those you mentioned, the current vice principals, representatives of the teaching staff, and independent experts in the field of education. Exactly, I agree. People who share the vision and values of Lundy Academy should shape its future. Walking out of Morton's office, I feel strangely relieved. It's as if I've lifted a heavy weight off my shoulders that I didn't even realize I was carrying. Now I know for sure that my life's work will continue even after me, that it will not be distorted or destroyed by those who do not understand its essence. On Thursday, as agreed, Garth and Octavia arrive at 7 sharp. They look tense and unnaturally friendly, as if afraid of saying the wrong thing. Mom, Garth hugs me tighter than usual. You look beautiful. Beatrice, Octavia holds out a bouquet of flowers and a bottle of expensive wine. We are so happy to see you. I accept the gifts with a polite smile and invite them into the living room. They sit down on the couch, keeping unnaturally straight, as if they're being interviewed. So, I begin, seeing no point in social niceties. What did you want to talk about? Garth and Octavia exchange quick glances. Mom, Garth finally says, we wanted to apologize for everything, for never taking an interest in your work, or asking about school, and for my inappropriate comments about the teaching profession, Octavia says. I was terribly ignorant and rude. Now I realize what an important job you are doing, what you contribute to education. I raise my hand, stopping the flow of apologies. I appreciate your words. But let's be honest. If you hadn't found out that I owned a successful private school, this apology would never have been made. You would have continued to treat me with the same disdain you did before. No, Mom, it's not like that, Garth protests. But I can see in his eyes that I've hit the mark. Garth, Octavia, I say softly but firmly, I hold no grudge against you. I really don't. But I'm also not going to pretend that everything can be fixed with one conversation. You've been showing me for years that my life, my work, my interests don't matter to you. That can't be changed in a day. But we want to try, Octavia insists. We want to learn about your school, about how you created it, how you run it. And why would you want to do that? I ask bluntly. What has changed other than your perception of my financial situation? They are silent again, unable to find a convincing answer. Look, I continue, I'm not closing the door on you. If you really want to work things out, I'm willing to try. But on new terms, no mandatory monthly dinners where we all pretend. No fake smiles and off-the-cuff questions. If you want to be a part of my life, you're gonna have to accept me for who I am. Not as Garth's mother or a potential source of income, but as an independent person with my own interests, values, and principles. Of course, Mom, Garth quickly agrees. That's exactly what we want. Then give me some time, I say. I'm very busy in the coming weeks. When I get a chance, I'll call you myself and we can get together. Maybe have dinner somewhere in the city, on neutral ground. I can see the disappointment on their faces. They were clearly expecting an immediate reconciliation and a return to their previous relationship. But I'm determined to keep my distance until I feel I'm ready for a new format of communication. After they leave, I sit in silence for a long time, pondering how sincere their apology was. Part of me wants to believe that they have truly realized their mistakes and are ready to change. But the more realistic part realizes that their sudden interest in my life is due more to the discovery of my financial situation than genuine remorse. I spend the next 2 weeks fully immersed in work. School starts preparing for final exams, which requires a lot of focus and energy. I am also working on a project to expand a scholarship program for talented children from low-income families, a topic that has always been particularly close to my heart. On Friday night, I prepare for the Board of Trustees benefit dinner. I pick out an elegant black dress and a pearl necklace, a gift from Edmund for our 20th anniversary. I don't usually pay much attention to my appearance, but today I want to look appropriate for the occasion. Elazar's, Scranton's most prestigious restaurant, is fully booked for the event. When I arrive, the room is already filled with the city's elite: businessmen, politicians, community leaders. I know many of them. Some are on my school's board of trustees. Some have children attending Lundy Academy, minus Miss Lundy. The mayor of the city shakes my hand in greeting. Glad you could join us today. We were just discussing your initiative to expand the scholarship program. This is an important step toward equal educational opportunity. I reply, I believe that talent should not be limited by a family's financial means. The evening is spent in lively conversations about education, culture, and the future of the city. I feel in my element. Here I am known and respected for my achievements, for my contribution to the development of education, not for family connections or financial status. In the middle of dinner, I notice them, Garth and Octavia, sitting at a table in the far corner of the room. They are not participating in the charity event. Apparently, they just decided to have dinner at an upscale restaurant. Octavia notices me first and nudges Garth with her elbow, pointing in my direction. I can see the amazement on their faces as they watch me chatting casually with the mayor, the president of the city council, and the owners of the city's biggest businesses. How these powerful people listen attentively to me, nodding, agreeing with my arguments. How they treat me not as an elderly teacher who can be patted condescendingly on the shoulder, but as an equal whose opinion has weight and value. At one point, a photographer from the local newspaper approaches our table. Ms. Lundy, can I take some pictures for an article about your donation to educational programs? I agree, and camera flashes illuminate our table. Out of the corner of my eye, I notice Octavia whispering something excitedly to Garth, pointing to what's going on. I don't approach them, don't let them know I've noticed their presence. It's not a demonstrative ignore, it's just that I'm really busy having an important conversation about the future of the city's educational programs. But internally, I realize that this chance encounter will probably tell them more about my real life than any words can. As the event comes to a close, I say goodbye to my colleagues and head for the exit. As I pass Garth and Octavia's table, I nod politely to them, but I don't stop to talk. In their eyes, I see a mixture of surprise, confusion, and perhaps for the first time, genuine respect, not for my money or status, but for who I am in this city, in the professional community, in the lives of people I've never met. Stepping outside, I take a deep breath of the cool evening air. The stars are shining brightly in the sky, and I suddenly feel unusually light. It's as if I've shrugged off the weight of years of pretenses and compromises. I know that Garth and Octavia see me differently now. Perhaps they are finally beginning to realize the magnitude of their mistake, not just the financial one of inheritance, but the human one of ignoring and devaluing my life, my work, my accomplishments for years. But more importantly, I myself am finally seeing myself in a new way, not as just a teacher, not as Garth's mom, but as Beatrice Lundy, a woman who has created something meaningful, who has made a difference in the lives of hundreds of children, who deserves respect and recognition. As I get into the cab, I smile at my thoughts. A new chapter of my life is ahead, without pretense, without forced compromises, without having to diminish my accomplishments to avoid hurting someone's ego. A life where I am valued for who I am, not who they want me to be. And that life starts right now.